Hello and welcome to the Happy Geek. I'm Benjamin Tucker and I'm here with a Happy Geek himself, Mr. Danny McLaughlin.
Hello there.
Today we're going to be talking about E3, which myself, I've been very excited about. I'm a keen gamer myself, I'm sure Danny is too.
Oh yeah, you can't stop me these days.
So yeah, let's get talking. Okay, so to those of you that don't know, E3 stands for Electronic Entertainment Expo and is an event held annually to demonstrate all of the new games on show. Probably the foremost event for gaming nowadays.
Oh, definitely. It's the most important video gaming event of the year, and it really gets people excited about video games over the rest of the year and the next 2 to 3 years.
It kind of has changed a little bit recently, I find that it's not quite as exciting as it used to be when I was a bit younger. Things like the internet mean things get leaked a lot easier. People filing patents, people tend to know about new games a lot before they're actually announced.
Yeah, that's the problem these days with the internet being as big and as vast and as easily accessible to everyone these days. It means that it's so much harder to keep a secret because everyone is digging somewhere. Everyone can find something.
I find you do still get that buzz though. I mean, you kind of know there's going to be maybe a new title coming out for one of your favourite series, or maybe even the possibility of a sequel to a game that, I mean, I was anticipating something that didn't come, sadly, but a sequel to a game that I played years ago, something like that.
Well, that's the thing about E3. Everyone, if there hasn't been too many spoilers and things, that means that you know that your game isn't going to be in it. But if you go in not knowing anything that's going to come up, you can be so excited because you think, oh, there's that chance that maybe that game will finally come out. And sometimes
that's what it is, though. It's the hope that kills you sometimes.
Yeah.
So yeah, what are the real big issues kind of approaching this E3?
Well, the thing is, Microsoft in particular have a big night ahead of them because basically last E3 they completely kicked themselves and had to basically do a complete flip-flop on the Xbox One because they had said you won't be able to play used games, you have to be online all the time, but if you don't want to go online, you've always got an Xbox 360, and people didn't like that.
They seemed a bit kind of, I don't know, a bit harsh, a bit like the strict parent in comparison to Sony. Quite free and easy with used games. They came out from the start and said, look, totally happy with that.
Yeah, they even released a video of them saying, this is how you share a game on PlayStation, and has a guy handing his PlayStation game over to his friend. And then they give a thumbs up, of course.
It's quite a bitter kind of war. And since the release of the Xbox One and the PS4, I mean, a lot of people have been saying that PS4 is ahead.
Oh yeah, PS4 is selling a lot more. But the thing is, Microsoft have seemed to... They look like they might be coming back.
It's quite difficult because they've kind of obscured quite a lot of the statistics. They're quite selective with what they release in terms of statistics about who's buying what, especially towards the launch.
Oh yeah, definitely. And the thing is as well, the two consoles, they're almost identical in specs and everything. So whenever you've got games coming out, no longer can PlayStation say, well, our games are always going to look better because we've got the high specs. Whereas
I'm going to have to disagree with you.
No.
I'm going to have to disagree
they are so
with you
close.
there. I don't know, in terms of true hardware, I'm going to have to say, for me, the Sony hardware does win out. Whether that'll be real tangible differences, maybe not now, maybe in 5 years' time, who knows. But for me, when I put that much money down, I want it to be the best possible. So there we go.
Well, the thing is as well about Sony, they have played E3 so well the last few years, and they even have their conference being streamed live into theaters, which it shows that they really have a passion for E3. And
it all helps generate the buzz, doesn't it?
That's it. And that's the thing about everyone expects Sony to win E3 yet again this year. And I think that's what is going to happen, probably.
Another big issue as well is you've got the issue of price. I mean, Xbox came in, what is it, a whole £50 more expensive in the UK?
Yeah.
Well, it might not sound like much, but I think for parents especially buying consoles for their children, I mean, they might not see the difference between the two. £50 is a lot of money still.
Yeah, it's another game entirely.
Yeah, exactly. Or maybe even another controller the way they've come up recently, but don't get me started on that. So that's another thing I'm annoyed about.
Okay.
So stay tuned and you can hear all about E3 and all about your favourite games coming up soon. So let's talk about Microsoft. How did they do at E3?
Well, Microsoft actually came in quite strong at E3 this year. They literally came out and they even mentioned Sony and Nintendo all being for the same cause, which was games. And they said this conference is just going to be about the games, which was a big downfall last year when they were focusing on TV, on techie stuff that we don't really care about. We just want games. And it was literally, from start to finish, so many games that you couldn't even begin to name them all. We don't have enough time here.
I think that's how it should be. I really, really do. I think that TVs, all that other tech, home entertainment systems, as they like to call them, they got their own place, really. But really, gamers buy consoles. And if you want to buy an entertainment package, you'll buy something else. You wouldn't buy an Xbox if you wanted to just watch Netflix or something like that. There's plenty of other ways to do it. It's nice to have it included, granted, but games for the gamers, that's what I say.
Yeah, no, completely true. But you know what else is surprising is that Microsoft have actually got a whole load of exclusive games this time. Like, normally they get Gears of War, they managed to get Titanfall, don't know how that happened, and a few other bits and bobs that people didn't really mind too much, like Halo. And this year they've got an Insomniac game, and Insomniac was always...
Huge history of PlayStation. I mean, I played them all the way through Spyro the Dragon, Ratchet and Clank, you got Resistance as well. All Sony franchises, really. Some of the most famous characters and kind of franchises from those.
Yeah, and what's annoying for PlayStation fans is that the game actually looks quite good. Sunset Overdrive, the trailer was quite funny, and the character seems witty and insane in the best ways possible.
So, do you see them staying exclusive, or can you see a kind of, I don't know, like a BioShock kind of thing coming around where exclusive for maybe a year and a half and then probably coming over to the PS4 a bit later?
What might happen is the same as what happened with Titanfall, which was the first game is exclusive, and then eventually the sequel, if it's good enough, will be multi-platform, and we can only hope that if you don't own an Xbox One and you own a PlayStation and the game turns out good and you want to play the sequel, but you can never tell with these things. Like Mass Effect, Microsoft guaranteed that the first Mass Effect game will never be cross-platform, yet now it's on PlayStation. So you never know.
It's one of those things that people kind of forget about it later on. Big announcements, but then will they follow it through years years later on, I guess?
Yeah. Another thing about Microsoft as well is just the graphics on every game that they showed. Every bit of gameplay footage was just absolutely fabulous, and everything just shone.
I think they've probably gone into kind of crowd-pleasing mode after last year. A lot of kind of ground to make up.
Yeah. Well, the thing that I found annoying about Microsoft's E3 as well was that in the beginning they had the first game was Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, and then I was like, but why would you show a game that is essentially a multi-platform game when you want to show how good Xbox is? And then at the end of it they say, well, it's because we've got timed exclusivity on the multiplayer maps.
Now this is something that really riles me, really, really annoys me.
Yeah, that's the thing about timed exclusives. You're just depriving people of fun, essentially, for no good reason.
I think when you're already locked into a console that you've bought, you're not actually going to want to go and maybe go and buy the other console just because they have an exclusive or something like that. I think it's quite naive, and I think it's quite insulting to the gamers, really. It might not be in their interest to kind of fuel the whole Sony-Microsoft war thing. I don't think it's really the best thing to do.
Yeah, that's the thing. Exclusivity and DLC and all that sort of stuff has just been a massive theme the whole way through each of the conferences. It's not just Microsoft, it's everyone.
It's true. I feel like there's so much Microsoft stuff to get through that we're probably going to be here all day. Where else did they really kind of perform strongly this year?
Well, as I mentioned before, it's the games in particular. They just showed the games for a change, and one of the games in particular that really surprised me is The Rise of the Tomb Raider.
This is one that I'm really excited about myself. Loved the first one. Thought it was a great reboot of the series. I think they did really well. They're kind of like a bit like Uncharted. Why were they announcing it in the Xbox conference?
Well, I think the Xbox, they just managed to get the rights before anybody else to show it at E3. It's probably just...
Can you see it having any impact on the game when the game's finally released?
Well, hopefully not, because I prefer it to be a bit more even spread between everyone. It's an unfair sort of competition when you're depriving the gamers of the game rather than...
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it was a multi-platform game. I think it's also out on the PS4. Xbox One is a kind of rebooted edition now as well. PS3, Xbox 360. I'm not sure if it's on the Wii or the Wii U.
No, I don't believe it is at the moment.
It did look exciting, the game, from the footage I've seen. I mean, nice little trailer, quite atmospheric.
Yeah, it does remind me of the trailer from the first game when it first was announced, and it's that same sort of excitement again of seeing the new Lara Croft finally again. And I think as well, although that was good to see that, the problem with this is that reboots are only exciting to a point, or even sequels and things like that. And this is a big problem for the conference because there was a lot of reboots, there was a lot of remasters, especially Halo. They've got a new Halo game, which people are obviously excited about.
Oh,
but
that's the big news for
yeah,
Xbox, yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is, that's another sequel. There's barely any new IPs at all. There's a great focus on indie games, and indie games, granted, they have there's a lot of creative ideas in there, but people want the AAA titles.
It's true. I think, yeah, there was quite a kind of conspicuous lack of new IPs.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, the remasters, I hate remasters. It's so pointless. And at the end of the day, if I wanted to play the game that they are remastering, I've got the old console, so I can just go back, stick in the game, and play from where I had it before.
Just see it as almost like a money-making exercise.
Yeah, it just seems to be that it's a way of making a bit extra money. But then again, people are excited about playing the new game on the new console as well. So
okay, so tell me more about the Halo release.
Well, the latest Halo game, it's set to be more cinematic than ever, and there's new characters, a new villain, and the whole package, which is from the very first Halo all the way up to Halo 5. And it's just seen as, it's called the Halo Collection, and it's even got Halo 2's multiplayer in the exact same way that it was originally.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's quite interesting then. Is that going to be a 360 release as well, or?
No, it's just going to be Xbox One.
Okay. How much of a balance did you find there was between the 360 and the One?
It seems to be that the Xbox One is by far the more powerful machine and is generating much better graphics generally. And it also seems to be that its social aspects are quite handy as well, although E3 didn't go into them that much, and it meant that, you can just focus on the play, I think.
Was there any progress on kind of Kinect-based games?
No, they actually kept Kinect out of the E3 conference altogether. There was barely any mention of it. They said Kinect will enhance your gaming experience, but that's all they really said about it.
Do you reckon that's due to almost like a bit of a backlash about having to have it included and needing it there with the console?
Yeah, it still is necessary, I believe, but it's not really been talked about that much, so people aren't too worried just yet.
Okay, well, yes, it seems like an exciting E3 for Microsoft. I'm sure Microsoft fans and gamers will be really looking forward to the next couple of years and the releases coming up. And we've dealt with Microsoft. Probably time we got along to Sony. Big rivals, and I think for me, that's my personal preference. Love Sony PlayStation, so for me, I was really quite excited about this E3. Tell me a little bit more.
Well, Sony, they have always done exceptionally well whenever it came to E3, and this year they even released their conference in theatres, so people in the US and Canada could go and see the conference in a theatre. And I don't know if this was just a gimmick or if they really believed in their conference that much, but it really showed that they had a passion for E3 and for games in general.
Seems to me like a bit of a show of power almost, like the people are willing to go to a theatre to watch the whole conference live. I think that's a bit of a dig at Microsoft maybe, I'm not sure.
Yeah, it could be. But other things about Sony, they suffered from similar problems that Microsoft did, which was reboots, remakes and remasters, and long announced Last of Us was finally shown on PS4, and to be honest, to me, I couldn't see much of a difference between the graphics on the PS3 and PS4.
No, I'm seeing a recurring theme here, and I haven't played The Last of Us, and I kind of had that in my back of my head. I was thinking, is it going to be released on the PS4? Should I wait for it? Should I buy it on the PS3? And I probably will go and get it on the PS4 now, but I've got a real issue, and it's one thing having games being brought out on both platforms, but I do feel like not enough development is going into true next generation games. And we're kind of having games that kind of bridge the gap, and we've got like things like Watch Dogs, the last Assassin's Creed, the last Battlefield. Like they're all almost being made at the same time for both platforms. I think they really should be giving everything to new consoles, because at the moment a lot of people have no reason to upgrade. I think a lot of people are struggling to see the difference in quality between PS3 and PS4 and Xbox 360 and Xbox One.
Yeah, that is a problem, but I think it's just a case now of we're still in a sort of recession period, and people don't quite want to fork out all the cash for these latest consoles, and I think people are still waiting to make sure who's going to win the console war, because that's what happened back whenever the Xbox 360 was first released, because they were released first, they had the most games and the most consoles sold, and PS3 came out nearly 2 years later, and it sold well, and it only in the last 4 or 5 years overtook Microsoft as far as sales go and games and stuff like that. But this year PS4 and Xbox One were released essentially at the same sort of time. I think PS4 was a bit early this year, a bit earlier than Xbox One, and it did help them in a way, and especially since they're a lot cheaper too, so they are more accessible than the Xbox, and the fact that they don't require anything extra. They just say, buy the console. If you want to play online, you'll have to purchase PSN Plus, but if you just want to watch Netflix or something, you can do that if you want. And that's helped them out a lot. And I think as well, DLC is another thing that comes up a lot in E3, and especially with Sony. They just kept talking about more DLC, especially exclusive DLC as well. And Microsoft do the same sort of thing where they have timed exclusive DLC, whereas Sony seem to have properly exclusive DLC, and it's normally just like an hour of extra gameplay or an hour-long mission or something like that. But again, it's the same sort of thing. You're depriving other people of the missions, and this always happens with Assassin's Creed, Battlefield, not normally Call of Duty, but Far Cry, things like that.
Yeah. Are there any sort of advancements to the actual console itself? Any new kind of accessories or anything like that going for the PlayStation at the moment?
Well, there's PlayStation TV, which and PlayStation Now. It basically means that certain Sony TVs are compatible with a little box that essentially you can plug into your TV. If you have a DualShock 4 or 3, you can play PlayStation games without a console at all.
Wow.
Yeah. And as well, what was exciting about whenever Far Cry 4 was announced, it was also announced that they were going to allow players to invite their friends, even if the friend doesn't have the game itself, and they can play along with their friend without having the game,
That's quite impressive.
Yeah, bought the game.
I just think that they're being a bit more kind of kind to the gamers almost then.
Yeah, a little bit.
Now, let's get back onto the games for Sony as part of E3. Now, I've spoken a lot about the console side. I'm personally quite excited about one of the sequels, Uncharted 4. Love the series. I think it's great. I think it seems like we're coming back to the story maybe a fair few years later, judging by what the kind of voiceover was saying in the trailer.
Yeah, basically in the trailer, it seems to be a lot darker, and it seems to be that Nate Drake, he's found himself in a bit of a pickle, and he's not in the greatest state of mind by the sounds of things. He sounds desperate, and it seems to indicate that the game is going to be a lot darker than it has been in the past. Even the setting and the light was so much different. Like, normally the Uncharted games have been really bright and really stylistic, whereas this is really dark and gritty looking. So
do you feel like it might be kind of like an end to the series?
Possibly, especially with the subtitle, what is it?
Thieves' End,
Thieves' End, yeah. So it could possibly be the end of Nathan Drake, but hopefully not.
I think Uncharted is one of Sony's real strongest kind of IPs. I think it's one of their best, and I've always got glowing reviews, and I think really quite underrated.
Well, the thing is about Naughty Dog in general, they have just produced hit after hit after hit since the first Uncharted game, and then they brought out The Last of Us, which absolutely amazed everyone that's ever played it, and it's been quoted as one of the greatest games to ever have come out on the PlayStation.
I mean, they're lucky to have such a great developer working for them, really.
Yeah, and as well, they only develop for PlayStation 4 at the moment, so...
Yeah, another exclusive to PS4 is Little Big Planet 3, and I'm not a big fan of the games, but I mean, they seem to keep going strong. I don't really know what to say about Little Big Planet 3.
Well, it has a huge following, and people have gone to great lengths to create some massive maps and really enjoyable levels, and they've been able to mimic like films nearly, and have been able to play in their own little worlds and share it with friends, and it's just, people have really enjoyed it. And with the latest Little Big Planet, it seems to be even more, it's even bigger, I suppose. There's more you can do, more you can change, and more characters as well. It's not just Sackboy anymore.
Taking it onto the new platform as well. I mean, it's really good. Big maker community on the game. It's kind of a real social game in itself, isn't it?
And it looks really... The graphics and everything look really, really nice and sparkly for it too, which is always a plus.
We've also got a new DLC coming up for the PS4 exclusive Infamous Second Son. It's Infamous First Light. Yeah,
it's going to be part of the Infamous franchise, but it's not essential to own the game to buy it. So you can actually go to the PSN store and buy this as a separate game nearly, and be able to play the game and enjoy it without having bought the main game itself.
It's quite a new thing in itself, isn't it? Kind of like more standalone DLC, not necessarily requiring the game. Well, coming in a bit, maybe a longer campaign on it, and then being a bit more expensive as well.
Yeah, well, Infamous have done this a few times. They've done it with the second Infamous game when they released the Halloween special, where you could play as Cole McGrath, and he's been infected with the vampire virus, and you get new powers with this, and you can go around some of the map, not the entire map like the game, but you can still explore quite a lot of New Moray and experience an entirely new storyline.
That's another thing as well, like talking about more exclusives. A great game is Metal Gear Solid, obviously, and it's not an exclusive anymore, but it's obviously got a strong history with PlayStation. They've made some more announcements for the 5th installment, the Phantom Pain.
Yeah, people are getting really excited about that, me myself included, and I'm just so amazed by how everything looks. It looks almost like proper CGI film quality, and that is gameplay footage quality, so I think I'm expecting big things from Metal Gear Solid.
I teased it quite a lot with the earlier game they released, Ground Zeroes. A lot of people felt it was a bit of a cop-out because it's quite a short campaign. It came in at maybe like £25 for the game, RRP.
Yeah. I still haven't actually played it myself, but I'm just waiting on it to get a bit cheaper at the moment. Basically, that's what put me off buying it to begin with, that it was essentially just a prequel of sorts and not really a standalone game in itself. It's only a little taste.
It's quite a good mix of games there for Sony, I think, yeah?
Yeah, definitely.
I'm personally quite excited. Okay, so let's talk about Nintendo's offering at E3.
Well, Nintendo, for a change, they've decided to do a digital conference rather than a live one, which means that basically all of their footage and presentations were a lot more polished, and it meant that interviews and stuff were a lot easier to listen to because translations were much better, whereas usually they would have, say, a Japanese developer come onto the stage and speak English, and sometimes it would be very difficult to understand for some people anyway. But it also gave Nintendo the chance to make a few funny little videos and stuff, and they had a Robot Chicken-esque style show, and it meant that a couple of our favourite Nintendo characters got to be on stage with the host himself.
It's a good move, really, not going live.
Well, I think it's a better business move for Sony, and it means that they don't have to spend as much money, say, on the presentation itself, and they don't have to worry as much, I suppose.
Sure. So let's go on to the Wii U. I mean, a lot of news out there saying it's been quite underwhelming with the sales, maybe not performing as well as they would have hoped.
Strangely enough, though, in Japan it is selling exceptionally well, and that's in part due to the latest Zelda games and Mario and all that sort of stuff coming out recently.
That's the true power of Nintendo, really.
Yeah.
They're exclusives, and it always has been.
Yeah, that's it. They've got these characters on lockdown, and they're never letting them go.
Any news on any sort of Nintendo DS?
No, DS was not really mentioned at all throughout the presentation. It was all about the Nintendo in general and the latest games to hit Wii U, and they got a lot of indie games as well. They even managed to get Bayonetta 2, which I believe is also exclusive to Nintendo.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's a big grab for them because originally the first Bayonetta, which was critically acclaimed, was on all consoles. And the fact that they've managed to get it themselves is a big step up for them.
It's also a big departure from the kind of image Nintendo is, quite squeaky clean, probably geared towards children. I mean,
yeah, she's the main character is still very scantily clad, and there's even a few little extras that allow you to dress her up as different Nintendo characters. One of them being Princess Peach, and yeah, it gets a little bit disturbing.
A bit of a weird exclusive then for Nintendo.
Yeah.
How about the big ones? I'm talking Mario, I'm talking Zelda. Tell me more about those.
Well, at the start of the conference, during the little Robot Chicken presentation, they actually said, "Oh, we don't have any Mario today for you." And the fictional audience got in an uproar. And so at the end of the conference, they showed that there's actually a Mario game, but it's a little bit more like a Little Big Planet, and you can make your own Mario levels. So you can make whatever level you want.
Sounds like quite a good idea to me. That sounds quite good.
Yeah, it sounds like it looks like it could be quite fun, and as well the graphics are a lot more enhanced. You can go back to the original graphics from the very first Mario games, or you can update them and have really in-depth backgrounds, and it's still 2D like the original games, but it just offers a lot more chance to play with the concepts.
That's one thing that Nintendo can always tap into. They've got a really rich history, a load of great franchises, and they're still around to this day.
Yeah. Another feature as well from Super Smash Brothers is that they have released these little figurines that are in the style of, say, Mario, and you can just attach Mario to your Wii U, and Mario will appear in your game and fight for you, and you fight with him rather, and it sort of creates this thing where you want to buy these little toys, and they have a microchip in the bottom of them that saves your data. So the more you fight with that character, the stronger he becomes. So
almost like a kind of like Skylanders sort of thing?
It's exactly like Skylanders. It's in the same sort of realm as Skylanders, so that's where they're taking it now.
There's a lot of money in that, of course, as well. I mean,
oh yeah,
a lot of extra things you have to buy. Parents won't be too happy about that, I imagine.
Well, I suppose, but it's the same as buying any toys for kids, really, when you think about it.
So let's talk a little bit more about the games on offer with Nintendo.
Well, there's actually a little interesting game that I like the look of called Splatoon, which is essentially a game where it's an 8-player multiplayer, and it's 4 players aside, and basically you have a paint gun, and you try and cover the battle area with as much paint as possible, but you've also got little abilities, like you can turn into a squid and swim through the paint, and you can swim really quickly, and you can fly up walls and all this sort of stuff, as long as it's painted in your colour. However, if you, say, land in the paint that's the enemy's colour, it means that you're going to be really slow and trying to move, and it's a disaster if you land in their area. So the aim of the game is just to try and cover as much of the area in paint as you can, and it means then you can traverse the battlefield as quickly as possible to try and get your enemies. And as well, it's not overly violent, like although you have to essentially blow up your enemies, but it's more younger audience friendly than, say, Call of Duty is.
Good. How about Hyrule Warriors? I mean, this is dating back to Zelda, I guess?
Yeah, it's taken a lot of the Zelda characters and it's bringing them into a new setting and giving them new missions and things like that, and it's basically like a giant war zone is happening, and you have each character has special abilities to take out all the enemies, and graphically it actually looks really, really good. It might not be up to the same standard as what you'd find on, say, PlayStation or Xbox, but that's because there's a vast difference in specs for each console, but it still looks really, really nice.
It's always quite an interesting kind of thing that they've kind of held themselves back again, Nintendo, with the technology. Are they that confident in their own exclusives?
That's the thing. I think they don't really need to worry too much about graphics and stuff, because the stuff that they make is always cartoony. It's for family fun. So they don't need realistic graphics because they don't make, say, racing simulators. They don't make war games. They don't really make games that essentially need those really realistic graphics. But if for games like Mario and all them, it works out perfect. And even the latest game, Xenoblade Chronicles, it looks actually quite nice as well. And it's like a sci-fi space ninja type thing where your characters are running around the place hitting each other with swords and jumping around doing impossible acrobatics, and a trailer was subtitled, so I'm not entirely sure whether or not it's going to be dubbed by the time it releases in the UK, or if it's going to be subtitled, or what this exact story is there, but it still looks fabulous.
Could we say that that's one area Nintendo do come in quite a lot of criticism, maybe, but compared to Xbox and PlayStation, they seem to have a lot more exclusives and a lot more new IPs as well.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. They can play about a lot more with new IPs, because if it's cartoony looking and if they relate it in some way to the original cast, say, of Mario and Zelda and Link and all them, then people will pretty much go out and get it just for that fact. But yeah, the fact that they have a lot more freedom as well, and as soon as they make an IP, chances are it's not going to make it onto another console. So I think people that play the Nintendo prefer that.
So good performance from Nintendo in general?
In general, I think it was a good idea for them to do a digital conference, and some of the games really did look entertaining. But on the whole, for me, I was a bit underwhelmed. But that's just my personal opinion.
I think that's the thing, though. I think neither of us really are the key audience for Nintendo anymore. And I don't know, I think I'm quite impressed with what they've come out with this E3.
Yeah, they have come out with a lot better stuff than they have in previous years.
Okay, so we've spoken a lot about the consoles, but let's get on to more about the developers and what they've brought to the table here at E3. Should we start with EA?
Yeah, let's go with EA first.
Okay, so one game I'm really, really excited about is Star Wars Battlefront.
I knew you were going to say that. I absolutely loved the old Battlefront games.
It's been years. I mean, I I don't even know, maybe 2008, 2007 when the last one was released.
Yeah, it must have been. Oh, people's hopes were crushed whenever LucasArts was taken down by Marvel, or not Marvel, Disney, and then somehow EA got the rights, and they showed a little teaser last year at the EA E3 conference, and we just saw the AT-ATs stamping around the battlefield, and that was enough. Everyone knew, oh, Battlefield, it's coming back.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was quite sad that I think originally there was supposed to be a third game developed, but so I think one of the sad things for me about Star Wars Battlefront is that Pandemic, one of the publishers that was making it last time, they went bust halfway through development, and they made a load of other games. I like Mercenaries as well, one of the old games on the PlayStation 2. I don't know if you ever got around to playing it.
Yeah, that was quite a fun game.
But loads of games, like, they were complete absence of the Battlefront games on the PS3 as well, and the Xbox 360, so it's nice to have them back. And as well, DICE is involved in the development of the games. That should be great. We're talking Destruction. If it's anything like the Battlefield series, that should be really great additions to the game.
Yeah, DICE have really proved themselves as the sort of forefront for war simulator games, and we're hoping that it brings the same sort of feeling to Battlefront.
Well, they've got a great engine really going for them. I think the Star Wars universe is pretty much there straight to kind of shoot into that. So I'm quite positive about that. I think it should come out really well. Another game EA announced was Mass Effect 4.
Oh, this is another one I'm really excited about. The trailer doesn't say much, but what it does say is that there's another Mass Effect game, and I am very excited. The ending to Mass Effect 3 was very controversial at the time, to the point where the publishers, or the developers, BioWare, had to actually release a free pack that went into more detail about what happens after each of the 3 endings. And this appeased people a little bit, but it still doesn't quite...
It's left a bit of a taste in the mouth, hasn't it?
Yeah, it left things very bitter for people that were really in love with the franchise.
Another BioWare game, I believe, Dragon Age Origins. Inquisition is the latest one in the series, I think they've announced it.
Yeah. Dragon Age is another one that people are really excited about. Mainly because, dragons, they're the best things ever.
And then also another, obviously, huge IP, The Sims 4.
Oh, well, me personally, I've never thought much of the Sims games, but people absolutely are addicted to this game.
I kind of lap it up. I think it's more of it's kind of Nintendo market game for just kind of average people, not really serious gamers.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I've always enjoyed playing them. Good fun. Another one I'm really quite happy that they've announced a sequel to, Mirror's Edge.
Oh, yeah. I loved that game. It was the only game that ever tried anything new originally with first-person perspective, and it gave you the chance to actually free run through the environment, and this hadn't really been tried before, and it really worked really well, and it gave so much. The city looked so beautiful on the screen, and everything was so polished. The only problem with the game was that it was too short in the end.
And also, obviously, every year, new announcement for the FIFA series, FIFA 15. I'm a keen football fan myself, so I'm happy about that. I don't expect to see too much innovation from the game, really.
Nah, FIFA. I'm not a big football fan, so it doesn't appeal to me really. FIFA, it's the same sort of mechanics every year, so you can't really expect too much.
It's quite a strong offering from EA on the whole.
Yeah, EA has definitely done quite well here, I believe.
Okay, so we've come on to Ubisoft now at E3 and how they've done, or what they've had to announce.
I like how you say Ubisoft instead of Ubisoft.
I don't know.
It's supposed to be that's supposed to be the right way to say it, but everyone just says Ubisoft will do. But anyway, Far Cry 4 is their first big one.
That's a big one for me. I played all the Far Cry games, all the way from the first one. Thought it was great, really groundbreaking. Crytek back then. Far Cry 2, not quite as good, but 3 I really enjoyed. Kind of returned to the series' roots on Desert Island, that sort of thing. I think the fourth one is a game I'm really excited about.
Yeah, have you seen that you can actually glide now?
Wow.
Yeah, if you go off the side of a cliff in a car, you can just press the toggle button and it'll launch you out of the car and you will glide down the side of the mountain like with one of those squirrel suit things.
Nice. That's the sort of thing that I do in my day-to-day life, so be able to do it back on the game as well. That's
Why not?
Perfect.
Why not?
Yeah. I just think they did really well with Far Cry 3, and it looks like they're keeping it in the same kind of style for Far Cry 4.
Yeah, it looks beautiful.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So, yeah, good one. Next up, we've got Just Dance Just Dance. Now, have you ever played it before?
I probably played it years ago, but I'm not a very dancing kind of person.
I think it's for the right sort of party. It is quite fun. Obviously, not for us serious gamers to be doing on my own. I don't know. I do enjoy it. I think it's a good party game. Still going strong, and it's one of those games like Guitar Hero. They'll release one every year and just put new songs in it and stuff like that. Same formula. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. New game here, which I'm quite excited about. Looking at the trailers for Tom Clancy's The Division.
Yeah, it's a big one. People are expecting big things from it. It looks absolutely stunning. It's almost photorealistic in some ways, but it's especially good because of it's a sort of future setting, and the tiny little bits of sci-fi elements to it really add a sense of future, and it looks like this tech could actually exist.
I think that's what's good about Tom Clancy. He's very good at coming out with kind of the material that is kind of semi-believable, and you kind of do think, yeah, this might actually happen, and it kind of adds to the story quite well. I think it's good.
Yeah.
It is a completely multiplayer game as well, which for me is not my favourite thing. If I have a couple of friends online, then yeah, sure, I'll play it, but I'm still excited to see how it turns out. Another
game that Ubisoft are releasing is going to be the cure for the racing game, which is called The Crew. You are a driver, and as usual in a racing game, and you are trying to escape the police after, say, a heist or something like that, and you can explore the entire map without a single loading screen at all, which is a feat within itself.
So that's one thing I think that for the next gen consoles is a really, really good idea. I mean, I played Thief recently, and the loading screens are really, really slow. And I find that if you're on the next generation, I mean, I've been treated to not having a loading screen for a while. I do not like loading screens. There's no need for them anymore, I don't think. So let's have more of that, I think.
Assassin's Creed Unity is another one that's coming up, and oh, am I excited.
You're not alone in that, I tell you. I am a huge lover of the Assassin's Creed series, and it's coming to Paris. Amazing.
Paris, yeah. Gotta love it. Although there hasn't been any mention of any more pirating, and I love that. I love that in Black Flag.
Good, yeah, I think that's one of the main redeeming features of Assassin's Creed 3 as well. I think the ships...
Yeah.
Really new element to it. When I first heard, I never thought it would work, but it actually works really, really well. Good fun. I'm sure they might be able to fit something like that in there somewhere, but I also feel that with games like Black Flag and 3, the cities weren't as kind of awe-inspiring as you got in the first two, and also the kind of Revelations and Brotherhood.
Yeah, I would agree.
The cities really were awe-inspiring, so maybe they'll go down the route of having two separate kind of things for that.
Well, the thing about Assassin's Creed Unity as well is the new element, which is 4-player co-op, which I think looks really exciting. Although whenever I was watching the demo on Microsoft, they decided to put all 4 split screens on the same monitor, and it was just overwhelming.
It's a bit too much.
Yeah, you can't tell who you're looking at or who's killing who or whatever. But if you're a good team member, then I think Assassin's Creed would really, really work out for you.
Yeah, I mean, Ubisoft have done really, really well. Same sort of franchises coming out, really building on their strengths. I think between them and EA, they've done really, really well. Probably better than the actual console developers.
Yeah, you never know.
So I think the question on my lips really is, who won E3?
Well, there was a lot of strong competition this year. And I found that basically, in my humble opinion, I think PlayStation might have done it again. Although it was really annoying that they decided to focus a lot on their sort of TV bits and bobs. It still was really strong. The presenters were really engaging, and I enjoyed Sony's conference, I think, a lot more than I did, say, Microsoft's, which was, I felt, a bit dry and robotic to me.
In terms of announcements, I think it's a bit more of a level playing field. I think we could say they've all done a bit well, but not really remarkably well. There's no real standout game or standout performer. I'm personally disappointed about some of the omissions. I was expecting Fallout 4. I'm seriously excited about Holiday Games, and I feel like there's no killer announcement.
Yeah, there wasn't that big announcement that really made you go, oh my god, I can't wait. Like even, I got so upset that yet again The Last Guardian has been left out. It's been supposed to be released on the PS3 at release date, and still Still, we have not seen it.
It's a strong one from the developers, I think, this year. I think they have done better than the console manufacturers themselves.
Yeah.
I think they're building on some very kind of strong franchises already, and I'm excited about some of those games, but I'm just kind of itching for the new thing. It's the next gen. I want something that's really going to blow me away and say to people, I want a PS4 to play that game. I want an Xbox One to play that game. And not be able to play it on the PS3 or the Xbox 360.
Yeah, that's the problem with E3 this year, and even last year and the year before. It's been slowly sort of losing that real impact. And I think in part to that was because the PS4, they had the announcement in February, and we didn't get E3 till June last year.
Mm-hmm.
And it meant then that big PS4 release wasn't as exciting, and the games had already been talked about. And this year, it's the same sort of principle, I suppose, where we'd heard a lot of announcements already and there was no big one, and that was probably the main problem.
Well, maybe we were spoiled, but I think another thing is I'm not sure about the relevance of E3 fully anymore. If Sony are happy to announce a complete different time to the actual thing.
True.
I think the companies are willing to do their own thing, things being leaked all the time. I just hope they really push it next year and come up with some great announcements.
Yeah, me too. So who, in your opinion, then actually did win E3?
It's tough for me. I am biased towards Sony, but I don't think they did wonderfully well.
Yeah, I still think Microsoft definitely performed really well this year. Like, I thought that it could be another potential disaster. But
yeah, I think a disaster averted for them is probably the best thing at the moment.
I think it's the best for everyone, really.
I guess we'll see next year, But for now, with the amount of announcements we had, I think the real winners in this are the gamers.
Oh, yes.
So a pretty eventful E3. I'm left still excited. There's enough games in there to keep kind of wet my whistle for the year coming up. So
yeah, it hasn't been a bad E3.
Very true. So yes, this has been the Happy Geek. I'm Benjamin Tucker.
And I'm Danny McLaughlin.
Join us again soon.